We have Kitty Leopardson live on the scene for the Leopards News Network. There has been lots of faces being eaten lately, but there have been sightings of leopards on leopard crimes. So, Kitty, take it away.
If you haven't heard, there's a real battle going on between the Bubbas and the billionaires in Trumpland. And here's Elon Musk's latest contribution, a tweet blasting MAGA, or 90% of them, calling them contemptible fools, which sounds, a lot like Hillary's comment that they're a basket of deplorables, except a little less poetic. The battle between the billionaires and the Bubbas is really a battle about how racist Trumpland wants to be. The Bubbas, they want to stop all immigration because they really hate all POC. But the billionaires are saying, no, 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 no. We want the educated immigrants to come here because they work better, harder, and cheaper than you do, MAGA. And to put a finer point on things, it's really not quite fair to call the billionaires in Trumpland racist. They really mostly hate people who are uneducated, whether they be POC immigrants or whether they be MAGA. They hate MAGA. And what this battle really brings to the fore is that Trumpism is a two-headed monster. One head, billionaire class. The other head, MAGA class. And for a while they got along because they had a common interest, to elect Trump. But now they're actively divorcing, and Trump is going to have to pick sides. Who's he going to pick? The billionaire class or the MAGA class? It's an interesting dilemma. And my guess is that he's going to pick the billionaire class. Why? Because they're like him. They're rich, they're greedy, they're his buddies. MAGA's expendable because he doesn't have to be elected anymore. The billionaire class can make him even richer and more influential. What can the Bubbas do for him now? Absolutely nothing. The balance, billionaires, MAGA, goes this way. MAGA's no longer of use to Trump. You know what happens when Trump decides that a group or person is no longer useful to him, right? He says bye-bye in a hurry. And I think that's the fate of MAGA.
The Leopards Ate My Face subreddit always has the best memes. I have been in there just screenshotting away. So we have this meme. It's titled, "What Was Vivek Thinking?" So at the top, it says, "Black Americans are lazy, have bad culture, and need to work harder like Asians." And then MAGA was eating it up, and they were quite happy, like, yay. But when he says, White Americans are lazy, have bad culture, and need to work harder like Asians, MAGAs get triggered. He and Elon from South Africa basically said that Americans are mediocre and they actually need more education, and they actually used a lot of very harsh language to describe MAGA. And the crazy thing is, Black people, brown people, we already knew, well, with the exception of Indians. We already knew how they felt about us. Now it's being targeted at them, and they're like, ah. Public Marionberry says, "Insult MAGA at your own risk." Board Guy says, "I do all the time. Should be an Olympic sport." Nana Crumble says, "The MAGA people are like the exact opposite of any kind of underdogs. They have all the tangible advantages and self-proclaimed superiority, and despite that, vast majority of them are mediocre or just plain unimpressive." Competitive Mix says, "That's why it has to be someone else's fault that they are abstract failures in life. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense." I've been talking about this MAGA on MAGA infighting, and I've had some really great comments on my YouTube. So this person, El Kui, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, says, "It would be funny if it wasn't sad. The thing is, a lot of Indian tech worker immigrants are higher caste in India who had some access to a formal education. When they come to America, they are shocked when they find out that the white Americans who aren't even as educated as they are still want to treat them like the untouchables or Dalit caste. It's a wild whiplash to behold." And then this person says they like being the racist, not the victims of racism. And that's the reason why these things are so layered. You know, they do have caste systems over there in India, and they get over here, they come over here and they finger wag and they act like Black people and brown people just haven't been, using enough bootstraps or whatever. We're just too woke, and they act like they're tangentially white, considering as brown as they are is kind of weird. But now they are seeing what MAGA really thinks of them, and they're like, oh, what? Huh? But we're seeing it play out, and it's very interesting to behold. Wanderlust Homebody says, when is everyone going to start listening to African Americans? Do they think that the last few decades upon decades that we've been crying wolf about racism in this country? To see other minorities whining about it on social media is laughable. Them not listening is balderdash. And then Michelle hones in on, do they think we've been crying wolf? That's exactly what they think. They say so every chance they get. That's the reason why we're sitting back and watching and not doing anything. So this content creator named Anna Gorish is clutching her pearls at what she's seeing. She says, it's horrifying. This is not what I thought I was voting for when I cast my ballot for Trump. When we are seeing 12,000 cross the southern border in one day, turning on those with an H-1B, of which there are a grand total of 85,000 per year, puts the lie to the claim that the right is not anti-immigrant. They just want people doing it the legal way. Guess what? Every Indian here on an H-1B is doing it the legal way. On the whole, they are wonderful neighbors and employees. They have driven so many of the technological advances Americans take for granted. And now they're demeaned as Jeets who stole U.S. jobs. I'm going to fight this. If the right is determined to attack legal immigrants in such racist terms, the coalition that Trump worked very hard to build will crumble and the party will die. Everything that President Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have fought for will end. My clients are not the problem. They work very hard. And whoever posted this screenshot put a bunch of laughing emojis, and I needed to circle that. They work very hard to ensure they comply with U.S. immigration laws, sometimes almost to the point of paranoia, i.e., I want to see my dad, he's dying, but will that jeopardize my status? Many of my clients have missed family funerals and last words because they would risk their immigration case if they travel. This is what getting in line entails, and now they are the target. I voted for Trump with little hesitation. I am beginning to regret it. Oh no, they're using slurs towards them. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. What are we going to do about that? Amber in the Mist said, I worked in tech for 15 years. The sexism and racism from the H-1B dudes from India or East Asia was off the charts. People need to start looking into their history to understand how deep this stuff runs. It's funny how the tech bros thought MAGA would go after the uneducated Hispanic immigrants coming to take jobs no Americans want while stealing the well-paying jobs for their immigrant buddies. H-1B visas are part of the Southern strategy. Too many women and Black people were in tech in the 70s and 80s, so they brought in people from a place they knew was sexist and racist. Now, I'm just saying all of that because I need people to know and understand why there is a certain demographic of people that's just going to sit back and watch and have absolutely nothing to say while these people get their wake-up call. I'll just say it like that. Okay, so this was funny. Why does USA need education when they have Jesus? Jesus trumps education. Education is wokeism. We want dumb people who believe that Democrats create hurricanes. Oh, their education is way too woke. I like what Christopher G says about the DEI stuff. He says the very concept of a DEI hire requires Browns can't be qualified as a baseline assumption. Without that, it makes no sense to even claim that. And then LaQuay says it's insane. They really think a place like England, formerly colonized by England too, so much of the population learns English, couldn't possibly have coding classes at their schools just because maybe their own American schools didn't have it in the past. It's like they can't comprehend that other countries can adapt to a changing world. And then Big Boo Gookie says, same thing with meritocracy. That is the baseline, that white people are more deserving, more qualified, and that Browns and Blacks are just not. So if they get jobs, if the Browns get jobs, if Black people get jobs, then they just probably took it from some deserving white person, specifically a white man. Ram Kamur, who I assume is Indian, says Trump needs to come out and make this settled. I'm one of the people who switched from Democrats to MAGA Trump. This whole episode makes me sick of how certain portions of MAGAs hate Indians. We came here legally. So did the Haitians, though. The Haitians on TPS, and they were still demonized. I just want to throw that out there. The Haitians were demonized, and they are here legally. But Anna Gorish, who we saw earlier, says, and I know very well what you go through. I am so sorry my fellow citizens have resorted to such racist anti-immigrant sentiment. It worries me that Leon felt any need to reassure them. And then Ram Kamur says, thank you. America is my home, and I'm living here for more than 25 years. Okay, who cares? There are some of us that have been here for 4 decades, have been here for 5 decades, and we still don't get treated with the basic dignity of this country. So you get in line, Ram Kamur. Oh, you thought you were special, huh? Because you were MAGA. Anna says, it's killing me because nobody actually knows what they are talking about. So it's bad data feeding anger and xenophobia. I see you. I'm not alone. This person at the bottom, Southwest Arkansas, says, this is a guy who yelled on the stage that legal immigrants in Springfield, Ohio were eating the cats and eating the dogs and then said he'd deport them. Perhaps the ethnicity of the victims of his lies made it easy to ignore. Right, Ram Kamur? S.D. Matheson said in a narrative voice, you did, in fact, vote for the racism. Blonde in Brooklyn is wondering, were you born yesterday? Darkside said, you missed it before this. Mom of CB says, you absolutely voted for racism and misogyny. Stop kidding yourself because nobody else is buying it. Adam says, you're getting exactly what you deserve, and now we will all suffer because of it. Damn you idiots. So we have been sitting back watching all of this MAGA on MAGA infighting. We're watching the tech bro MAGA versus the alt-right MAGA versus Indian MAGA. We're watching the way the MAGA House people are going after MAGA Mike Johnson. It's been wild, but I've been highlighting it because with the fact that they are doing all of this fighting, I don't think that they're going to get a lot done as far as governing. And so I put this comment on one of my posts saying, I don't think that Republicans have the capacity to actually govern. They could get together to tell Democrats no, but I do not believe that they are able to create any legislation and be productive during this term. They need a bad guy. They need to have Democrats to go against and make them the fall guy. And now that they have slight majorities in both the House and the Senate, they will have to coalesce and work together. But this infighting is making it so that they will not be able to work together. I highly doubt they'll be able to figure out who their House Speaker is without a bunch of mess and drama. So that is going to be their first test to see if it's possible for them to govern. All Democrats have to do is sit back and wait. Because if Trump is actually successful at getting anything passed that he wanted to, it would be a detriment to America. So we're better off just watching them fight versus thinking that they should get anything passed. I don't actually think that we should want them to be successful at anything, because if they're successful, that means that they are jacking up lots of things. If he actually is able to get anything as far as laws go passed, is going to be a detriment. So we're going to sit back and watch, because if anything, they would actually have to start doing some politics where they work together with Democrats. But I don't think that they have that capacity, because they've been so used to saying no to Democrats ever since Obama's administrations that they probably don't even know how to form that word in their mouth. Anyways, let me know what you think of all of this. Join the conversation. Don't forget to like. I want to talk about the history of sharecropping. My family from Louisiana were actual sharecroppers. My grandfather picked cotton, but they weren't slaves. Sharecroppers basically started after the Civil War in response to the economic needs that these former slave owners had, where they still needed their crops picked, but these people, the African Americans, the Black people, are now free. So what are they going to do? They attach these former slaves to the crops and make them pick crops. So basically what happened? You create some economic dependency. these black people, they needed some money. So what do? In order to make them make money, you make them borrow the supplies that they need. You make them pay for their food, and then it gets deducted from the harvest. There are contracts. The sharecroppers actually sign contracts with the landowners, and basically it says that you pick a certain amount, and it's always skewed towards the landowners. And it keeps them in this cycle of poverty. Many sharecroppers never actually made any money. They actually found themselves in debt forever because they couldn't pick enough to actually fulfill those contracts and eat. So it's not like they could ever really leave those homes from the landowners. And it kept the social structure the way it is. It kept black people on the bottom, and it kept the landowner white class on the top. And it kept those black families marginalized forever. So I'm just talking about this sharecroppers because it sounds quite familiar as we're talking more and more about these H-1B visas and how they have contracts and how they're connected to their jobs, and how a lot of the times those jobs make stipulations that they have to work a certain amount of hours, and if they don't, they get kicked out. So it keeps some level of classism and elitism right there, where, instead of the landowners, it's the employers at the top of the hierarchy. Also, as we're talking about all of this, the H-1B, it could also sound a little bit like indentured servitude. With indentured service, there was also coercive conditions. These people had a contract. It was mostly keeping people at certain classes. So, and it's not like it is slavery because they could work the contract and then work their way into society, but it did have harsh working conditions. So I'm just putting that out there that these people came from another place. They had the contracts. They had to work for a specific number of years, just like the H-1B people. The conditions that they had to work with, they didn't have full rights being here. But if you did complain, you might face even harsher working conditions. You might be punished, you're disobedient, and they could break the terms and send you back or whatever. They might have used like jail people, like prisoners to work, or it just seems like all of this is just another way to exploit people, to have slavery with another name, or a legal form of slavery right now. Whew. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not going to say that these people are indentured servants or slaves or anything, but it sounds a little bit like indentured servitude or the sharecropping history of this country. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think about all of this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.